Hello and welcome to the Affirmusic podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to exploring the intersection of music, positivity, and personal growth. I am your host, Dan Laureano. I am a songwriter, producer, and all-around creative. But most importantly, I am a musician. And that's what we're going to be jumping into talking about today. What does it mean to be a musician, especially in 2024? And the reason I want to talk about this is because I think we, as musicians right now, a lot of us, are just a bit maybe confused and misguided about what it truly means to be a musician. And I want to help put us back on track, so to speak, and address this. But let's start from the top. Let's talk about what the definition of a musician really is. If you look it up in the dictionary, it says a musician is a composer, conductor, or performer of music, especially an instrumentalist, who is a player of a musical instrument. So let's take it down to the most basic. A musician is someone who plays and/or writes music. A musician is someone who plays and/or writes music. A musician is someone who plays and/or writes music. So according to that definition, I'm pretty sure that for most people listening to this podcast, this defines you. You are someone who plays and/or writes music. Now, since you are that, you have perhaps gone on to get together with other people who play and/or write music and formed bands or instrumental groups. Perhaps you've gone on to perform with those bands and become a public performer. Or you've gone into the studio to take on the role of producer or engineer. Perhaps you began to arrange the songs of others, or you've become the musical director for a project. These are all things that happen after you are that thing, a musician. You see, you as a musician are that, no matter what. No matter if you're doing it with others in front of an audience, or alone in a room for your own satisfaction. And this is what I want to address. We all love these things that come as a result of being a musician, and we pursue them because we are musicians, and we want to delve further into our passion. But who told us that any of these things were required or necessary for us to be defined as musicians or fulfilled as musicians? And there's an elephant in the room when it comes to this. And for a lot of us, including myself, that elephant is social media. And it's okay to say, I'm a musician, not a content creator. Not all of us want to create content online. It doesn't make us better or worse. It's a choice. Social media is a tool. It can help you to achieve some of your goals, help get some recognition, get your name out there, show people what you do. So perhaps you can obtain an opportunity to perform, or maybe just to network. As you showcase your talent, you may get a chance to work with other talented people. Or you can really develop a fan base if you're doing it consistently and engaging with your followers. A lot of these things are maybe things we desire as quote unquote commercial artists. I mean, if you're a creative artist and you have any desire to make music into something you derive money from, some would argue that whether intentionally or not, you are veering into a form of commercial art. So a lot of these goals we set for ourselves are all well and good and desirable for many of us. But we have to understand that this does not define us as musicians. It does not define us as to what it means to be a musician. And I think that when we forget this, it can cause a lot of misdirection, a lot of spinning of our wheels, and ultimately, if we don't feel that we are successful at these things, it can lead to a lack of self-worth, which can lead to depression, which leads to a lot of us feeling like we should just give up. We lose our focus and we lose our drive, and we forget why we started playing and writing music in the first place. We say to ourselves, what's the use? Ultimately, playing and or writing music, being a musician, it's for you, yourself, your satisfaction, your self-fulfillment. It brings you joy. It's something you don't need anyone else or anything else to be. It is you alone with your guitar, or alone at the piano, or alone with just your voice, or whatever your instrument is, creating sound, organizing notes into a composition, or playing a piece of music that another beautiful solitary soul has also created. Whether you choose to share this joy with others, be it an audience or other musicians, in a practice room or in a concert hall, or on your very own YouTube page, it's a choice defined only by the rules you create for yourself. There should be no pressure or feeling of not being valid, whether you choose these things or not. You, as a musician, regardless of any of these things, are valid in your own right. As long as what you are doing is giving you joy on some level, or at least pointing you in the direction of joy, that's your measuring stick. Not comparing yourself to the exploits of other musicians and the choices they are making. And I'm not bashing ambition or anyone else's idea of success. These can be really positive things. And in fact, I believe that with focus, drive, and belief, you can achieve your goals, musical or otherwise. I believe it so much that I wrote a book based on that idea. I'll put a link to it in the show notes in case you want to check it out. But my point is, these are all things that happen because of being a musician first. And without holding on to that simple idea of just being someone who plays and or writes music and the pure joy and beauty of just that thing, you see, if you lose that, you can lose the whole thread. You are a musician first. In addition to being that, if you perform in front of an audience, you may be considered a quote-unquote performing musician. If you are on the various social media platforms and that's your main thing, you might be a quote-unquote content creating musician. If you are pursuing music as a career and your aim is to be paid consistently for your craft as possibly your sole or one of your sole sources of income, living the dream, for some, you are a quote-unquote professional musician. So just to wrap things up, my point again is this: you are a musician first. Anything beyond that, whether or not you choose to participate, does not validate or invalidate you as a musician. And I encourage you to hold on to that joy of being a musician first and know that that is the thing that matters the most. I alluded to my book earlier. That book is called Affirmusic, Affirmations for Musicians. I wrote it precisely because of what I've been talking about in this podcast. There can be many facets to a musician's life, and it can be quite involved. Along the way, we might need some encouragement. Affirmations are sentences that can be used in the most simple way to inspire, and at the deepest, to truly break negative patterns and change beliefs for the positive. However deep you choose to take it, the book's aim is to infuse a musician's life with some positivity and focus and to help direct musicians towards their goals. My hope is that the book can do that for you. And if you don't have a copy, it's for sale online. And again, there's a link in the show notes for you. But also, more than that, just expanding on some topics in the Affirmusic book, I hope that this podcast can be that for you as well. I hope that it can be a place where you can come for an alternative view and just for a boost to help you keep going in your pursuit of music, whatever that means to you. And before I go, I have to mention that I am a lover of creativity overall. And so I'm hosting a Zoom workshop going through the famous book on creativity called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. This is starting very soon, and depending when you're listening to this, some spots may still be available. So if you'd like to go on this 13-week journey with me, it's going to be an amazing time. I've done this once before, and we all learned a lot about our artistic blocks and how to recover from them and started new, exciting habits that really have opened us up to greater ongoing creativity. So if you're interested in that, please, again, check the link in the show notes. Well, that's it for episode number 1. It's actually been a long time in the making. I thought I would start this around the same time my book was released, which was June of last year, but I really got involved promoting it. And by the way, if you're not following at Affirmusic on Instagram and TikTok, please do. It's a great companion to the book and the podcast. And also, please rate this podcast 5 stars. It will definitely help with my reach just getting started here. And really, I just want to say thanks to everyone who has been encouraging to me on this journey. I will see you for episode 2 coming soon. We're going to be having interviews. We're going to be touching upon a lot of topics related to music. So thanks, everyone. Peace, love, and music making. And I almost forgot, please subscribe and follow this podcast so I can bring you more of this content. Thanks so much, guys. See you on the next one.